Still here, and today I want to talk about the introduction for the astrology of abuse. Introduction to astrology of abuse. And why do I say introduction? Because I'm going to talk about more on the logistics of it today, and also on the psychological aspects of it today. So I'm going to talk about owning our own natal chart, owning our own shit. I'm going to talk about how to ask for someone from their natal chart. I'm going to bust some myths of abuse and an abusive relationship, and how we need to give up love, to be willing to give up love that has unhealthy aspects in it in order to break free from abuse, basically. And then I'm going to get a bit into the techniques of how do we look for a natal chart, what do we look for, is it the natal, the composite, the synastry, or all, and hopefully conclude with some aspects and what do you do when you don't have the date, the exact time of birth of the natal chart of yours or the partner. So, first thing to know about abuse. Abusive relationships are relationships with abusive aspects. I'm going to say it again. Abusive relationships are relationships with abusive aspects to them. That means that the relationship itself can be beautiful but has aspects of abuse within it. It's not just abusive. It can be a person you grow with. It can be a person you have a lot in common with. It can be a person that is beneficial to you in many ways. There can be many, many things that keep you in an abusive state, in an abusive relationship. And you will see them in the chart. It can be a soul connection. You can feel the feelings of the other from apart. You can have telepathy. You can have great sex. And all of these things still do not outrule the indications for abuse. The second thing is indications for abuse are real. When the chart tells you what it is, believe it. When a person tells you what they are, believe them. And the second myth is that you can only get into abuse with a person who is abusive. No, no. Abuse is also what you make together. How do you relate to each other? That's the synastry. And what energy you become when you become one. That's the composite chart, or how I look at the composite chart. So you can have a person whom you rub each other the wrong way. And if you have a disposition to be victim or to be abusive or to be both, usually it's both, then you can get into this unhealthy dynamic with a person who is a beautiful person. But they may have one or two dispositions that are light, and somehow you rub each other the wrong way. So you don't always look only for their natal chart. I'm going to touch that on what do we look for. So you have to be willing to give up love if you want love that is healthy. You have to be willing to give up love, because there is a tremendous amount of love that you are giving up when you're giving up abuse. You're going to be able to look at charts and see indications for abuse, but you will also see square and honest as a proof, almost a scientific proof, of what you do have together, of the beautiful connection that you do have together aside from the abuse. And I'm going to go back to my previous video, which I talked about the lessons of abuse, and I'm going to say it again. The lesson of abuse is to walk out of abuse. The lesson of abuse is to walk out of abuse. And because the lesson of abuse is to walk out of abuse, when you see a chart, when you see a composite chart, when you see a synastry with indications for abuse, more often than not, these indications will play themselves out in the relationship. They will. And if you stay, you will have to walk out sooner or later. Now, I know there are people with evidence that they have worked things out and so on and so forth. Okay, fine. Um, there are many, many beautiful ways for you to grow, and they don't have to include abuse. I believe genuinely that you need to get over um, yourself and own your own patterns when you are alone, because a lot about abuse is not being able to be alone. So when you have your own groundedness and your own self-love, then you work on this on yourself, and then you bring partners who are able to bring out the best in you and not the worst in you. Not the best and the worst in you, but the best in you. And then you have a relationship. That's what I believe in. You can disagree anytime. So that's for a couple of myth busting. After this introduction, I'm going to say that when we look at charts, we look at your own natal chart, at the partner's own natal chart, at the synastry, that is how you relate to each other, and at the composite chart. All of them are available in sites like astro.com, where you can put the details of your partner. And the partner can be a person you're dating, it can be a prospective boss, prospective client, prospective employee, a friend, business partner, any of the sort. You want to put your chart, your date of birth, their date of birth, preferably with the exact hour, the exact time of birth, and the place, of course. And you want to check both your natal, their natal, the synastry, and the composite chart to test for the hard aspects. Now, before we get to the hard, why do you want to take a look at all of them? Because it makes sense. You want to know who they are, who you are, how do you relate, and what energy do you make together. When you become one, you become one that is greater than the whole, and that's why the composite chart is so important, because you change along the relationship. And it's not for nothing people say you are the sum of the 4 people you hang out the most with, or the people you hang out the most with. And that's the composite. That's what you see in the composite. It's what you become with this person. If the synastry is how you relate to this person, the composite is what you become with this person. And that's why it's so, so, so important, because that can transform you. And it's also what you're sending out to the world together. So we've talked about that, and that. Great, wonderful. Before we get to the aspects, there was something I wanted to say. First, if you don't have the exact date, time of birth, what you're not going to have is the ascendant. So you're not going to have the houses in which these dynamics take place, but you are going to have the aspects. And the aspects are most important. The aspects between the planets are the most important. So, and that leads me to the second. No, it's not the second, maybe it's the 6th or the 7th thing I have to say. Every long-term meaningful relationship has hard aspects in it. And you want there to be hard aspects. You want there to be oppositions, you want there to be squares, and you even want there to be conjunctions. The question is, what hard aspects? The hard aspects are always going to be a source of conflict between you. There's going to be conflict. And through this conflict, there's going to be growth of you as an individual, of the two of you as individuals in the relationship, preferably. Because otherwise it's one-sided relationship and it may not fit for. Even if you have a relationship with someone you are subordinate to, like a boss or an instructor, if you're doing an apprenticeship, you still want both of you to grow within the relationship. You still want. This is my belief. But the question is, what hard aspects? Ideally, I would make a list of the hard aspects you do want in a relationship, and I'm planning to do such a video in the future. It requires for more personal growth for me and for more research for me. So ideally, I would say, These are the aspects you want in your relationship. If you have any hard aspects that are not listed in here, run. But that's not how reality has worked itself to be. So in my next video, I'm going to talk about the aspects that you don't want in your relationship, and I'm also going to give you a little bit of literature review, because a lot of it is basically stuff I've learned thanks to the help of people in comments of videos and videos on YouTube that tell this information. So I'm going to give you the links to the particular videos. So that's as to the aspects, because the planets remain in the same sign pretty much throughout the whole day, unless they're the ascendant. And so if you have the date of birth with the year and the place, shouldn't be a problem. You can usually get that on the Facebook of the person that you are checking. Sometimes people don't write the years, so how do you ask for a natal chart from a person? Basically, what I like to do is to say, I'm making this social experiment with my people. I'm learning astrology, and I'd love if you could partake in this experiment, and I can give you a free reading of what I do know. So this is a beautiful gift you can give to someone. You can give them a free reading. You can offer them something where, and a lot of it you can look for in astro.com. It's going to, when you do the AstroClick person and AstroClick partner, you're going to get the natal chart and the composite chart, and you can give them beautiful gifts of what aspects do they have to remedy or things they need to be aware of. When you go a bit deeper into astrology and learn astrology, then you can already do that. It's a beautiful gift to give to someone. Now, people can lie about their dates, of course, but they're putting themselves in a Russian roulette because they can give you the date of someone who is violent and abusive, and they're not violent and abusive. You just don't want to give out the real date. Okay, fine, that's their problem. And you can miss out on some people, but then there are also other signs of abuse that you want to be aware of. And after you've done that, how do you break up with the person if you saw abusive patterns before they play themselves out? Now, you have to be willing to give up love. That's something I already said. And the second is to own your shit. Own your natal chart. Own your characteristics. If you have victim patterns, if you tend to put yourself in situations of abuse, if you tend to not define your boundaries that well, own your patterns. If you tend to lash out at people, if you have abusive traits yourself, if you are afraid that you're going to be on the side of the abuser, own that shit. And you can say to the person, listen, I have things to heal in me in terms of setting boundaries. I tend not to set boundaries sometimes that well, and then I take it out on the other person sometimes. And that's something I am healing in myself. That's not something and I saw that there are aspects here that trigger this part in me, and I'm not willing to partake in this connection. But you do have to be firm on the boundary, because they might react in all kinds of ways and try to. Usually they respect it. Even if a person is abusive, they will get the point and they will respect that, or have tendency to be abusive, because you're going to attract a lot of people who are more self-aware the minute you become. And it's a very loving thing to say to a person, listen, I'm owning my shit. I have the tendency to put myself in the victim stage, and I'm not making you the abuser. That's what you're saying very lovingly there when you say, I have certain patterns where I sometimes forget to set boundaries and then I lash out at the other person, and I know that there are aspects here that triggers this part in me, and so I have to give up the connection. Now they may try to analyze you, to which you say, this is my boundary for my reasons, and I ask you to respect that. Okay? And if you are on the other side, if you have, let's say, a Mars conjunction Saturn, and you tend to lash out at people at the close range, so you say, I have my own patterns where I tend to lash out at people sometimes. And I see that there are aspects here that trigger just that. So for the sake of us both, I'd have to give up this relationship. It's something that I have to heal in me, and I'm not right now in the position where I want to take this challenge on. Period. Usually people will either appreciate that or again try to analyze you and make you think that things are going to be okay, to which you say, this is my boundary for my reasons, and I ask you to respect that. They will. Unless they are really, really, really abusive and difficult and spooky, they will. And you have to learn how to be firm with your boundaries. You have to put yourself out there. You have to get out of the closet of astrology to do that. This is not something you do hidden. You can, but it's preferably done outspoken. Why? Because you want to attract people who are genuine and honest with you as you are with them. So that's the introductory part. It's getting kind of long, so I'm going to cut it and then I'm going to go to the aspects themselves on my next video. Let me know in the comments below, how do you identify abuse in astrology? Do these tips resonate with you? And how much are you looking forward to the next video? I'll see you. Ciao.